Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Medevac Podcast. I'm your host, Christian Meyers, joined by our other host, David Reid.
Hello, everybody.
Before we hop into our guest today, please keep in mind there's a price for the show. If you're new here, listen up. You have to share it with a friend or family member if you get something out of today's episode. So hit that share button, interact with the content somehow, like and comment.
Ask us questions. We love questions.
Absolutely.
I think we answer almost every question.
Yeah, or we've been getting a lot of DMs lately as well for direct advice. So feel free to reach out directly if you guys want to. Leave some comments if you have something more applicable for a group setting. And if we don't have the answer, we'll make something up.
And stay tuned for another live episode soon, right?
Yeah,
we're going to be doing a new live episode. We'll announce it on our Instagram page, so just make sure to pay attention. But anyway, who is our guest today?
Our guest today is Jason Drees. It's like trees with a D.
Like trees with a D, that's it.
Welcome, Jason. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Jason is a power of mindset coach. He's got some pretty interesting history. We're going to hop into some discussions today on how his evolution went from tech sales into coaching, developing mindset, and the next steps with a new foundation that you're establishing specifically for veterans and introducing them to power mindset and financial security.
Yeah.
So a program within the Flow Foundation, we'll break into that in a little bit, that specifically helps veterans achieve their goal of bettering their mindset.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's incredible. That is incredible. So let's dive right into kind of the history of Jason. What is the background that kind of led you up to getting in front of people and telling them how to frame shift and change their mindsets?
How much time do I have? You know,
you have all the time you need, brother.
That's a great question. You know, like I've always been kind of driven to have more than I was. You know, I kind of grew up in Southern California in this area that was kind of an upper class area. Snoop Dogg lived there for a while.
Oh, that's a little bit upper class, I would say.
Up in the hill in the country, you know.
Yeah, not Compton.
He was on hill number 3.
Number 3. Yeah. Yeah. So I grew up with this interesting contrast, being around lots of money, but not having a lot of it.
Yes.
So instead of getting a BMW for my 16th birthday, I got a job.
Yeah.
You know, so I've basically been working. My parents did the best they could, you know, but I wanted more. So I've always been working. And basically there was always a drive to be more. And at the same time, there was always like a drive to be happier. You know, my dad used to call me his sensitive boy.
Yeah.
Which I hated.
I mean, who does like that anyway? You know, I'm a Cancer myself, and everybody has to remind me how emotional I am all the time.
Sensitive.
You know, I just cry myself to sleep at night. What's wrong with that?
Helps me get to sleep. What's the big deal?
Yeah, like I've been through so much coaching over that whole process. Right?
Yeah.
But that was me. It's just like I've always been very sensitive to emotion, right? And my life has developed from sales, which I was just easily good at because I'm good at talking to people and I'm good at reading people. So I was in sales for 15 years and I was great at that. And without much effort, I could always be in the top 10% of sales.
What do you think led to you being great at reading people? Did that happen, at an early age?
Well, I think that some people are more sensitive to other people's emotions than others.
Yeah,
sure.
Just innately.
Innately.
Yeah.
Mine was always turned on.
Yeah.
Right. And in my 20s, I was just a drunken mess in my early 20s.
No, we are, I think.
And I
Same.
But I realized when I started getting into personal growth later that I was trying to numb all these feelings I was having. And I thought they were all mine. But they weren't all mine.
Yeah.
I was feeling everybody else's.
Sure.
So basically my life has taken me through a process of, number one, chasing financial success. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad in 2003. And that either helped or made me crazy. I'm not sure which one. Right? And so there was the desire for growth and success. At the same time, also driving me was the desire to be happy. Because I was consistently like, why don't I feel good? Right? And that kind of drove this whole journey.
Was it a feeling of unhappiness or being unfulfilled?
It was kind of just not feeling good.
Okay.
Oftentimes when, people are chasing financial gains, there is a disparage between happiness and unhappiness.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of was a route that you were going through? It's just in a world of chasing money, but doing something you were not passionate about.
Well, we're all chasing something. We're all conditioned to want more. That's the human nature, right? I remember when I was in high school and my dad's like, I got my first job and I was 15 and a half. He's like, you can get a job like me. Great job, son. Work until you're 65 and retire. And I thought, you want me to do something I don't want to do for 40 years? That sounds like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, 40 out of my 80.
40 years. I'm like, that's fucking nuts. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I think that we're in a generation right now, the current generation now feels that. And that's why you're seeing so many people have such a hard time hiring.
Yeah.
Nobody because
wants to actually work
because no one wants to work because they see that they like 65 and 40 years. What the heck? Why would I do that?
Yeah. What am I going to get after that? I get 20 decent years maybe, or is that 20 decrepit years afterwards? You don't know how, your health's going to be at 65 years old. Nobody does. You might not get any good time after that and you've wasted all your time working.
Yeah. So it basically turned into sacrifice, right? Sacrificing now for the future.
Yeah.
And it got so crazy that I was like and at one point I worked for Tony Robbins and I just became a crazy person, like screaming out loud, tapping my face and all this stuff because I was trying to create success. And as I've started, coaching over the past 10 years, I see that habit in most entrepreneurs. Like there's this desire for more and more and more. And what I'm realizing now is that true success actually comes from being happy now. And the best way to actually create success in the future is actually to be happy now.
Interesting, saying that I heard was that if you're focused on the past, you're depressed. If you're focused on the future, you're anxious. And if you're focused on the present, you're fulfilled and happy.
Yeah. And I would really kind of expand upon the work that I've done around mindset. That is that we are limited by our past experiences. The present moment is not an indicator of the future. It's the result of the past.
Sure.
And most people are living their lives in reaction to the present moment. So they're literally recreating limitation after limitation after limitation.
Or old belief systems, right?
Old belief systems, yeah. It's literally like your brain, like when you're driving, your brain has cataloged everything into it prior to now in your life. So as you're driving your car of life, it's like you're driving staring in the rearview mirrors because it's comparing everything you do next based on what you did. And the work I do is I rip off the rearview mirrors.
And just look forward.
Just look forward.
So the way that you say that, you basically said, choose to be happy. How do you choose to be happy? And I mean, we have, I don't want to diverge too much into mental health and those types of things, but in a general sense, how does one choose to be happy versus becoming happy?
Well, it's a decision, and with the growth that's going on in life right now, right? We used to have this time where you hear these executives take a week-long annual personal growth retreat, right?
Yeah,
that doesn't exist anymore. It's personal growth nonstop now.
Yeah,
so it's really a decision to pursue happiness and literally raise the standard. Because a lot of times we'll get into this habit of a emotional comfort zone where we live our life, or a comfort zone financially where we live, or a relationship. And getting out of that is not hard, but it takes consistent focus.
Sure.
So it really has to do with raising your standard. Because even though I've been happy and then I've had stress, it's a constant evolution.
Consistent work, right? Yeah.
Let's talk about you and your breaking point for raising the standard. Before you got into coaching, you mentioned prior to the show that you got into the tech world.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you got started into that pursuit of financial success.
Yeah.
What was it for you that you had enough of?
Well, in the early 2000s, I was working for the weekend,
Yeah, that is a huge thing. It's like everybody says it's hump day or like it's Friday. Yeah. And I'm always like, that is a terrible mentality to be in because you're living your life on a routine that is just standardized.
Yeah. And I was working for the weekend. I was 27 years old, maybe 30, and I was making like $100,000 and I was like king, when kids at that time. And in my family, some of my family went to college. I was already making more than most people in my family were. So I was already at the top of my my financial mindset that I grew up in, I was already beyond that.
Mhm.
So I was just like, let's have fun, work for the weekends.
Yeah.
And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in like 2003, 2004, and then I haven't had a weekend off since. I'll basically put it that way. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. So you like we all have the breaking moments of when we're going to make a change. How do you reevaluate your goals? So let's put it in the perspective of I'm making $100,000. This is more than I thought I was ever going to be making. I feel pretty happy with where I'm at.
Yeah.
How do we get over complacency? How do we reassess, reattack our goals, and move on to the next objective?
So that's a lot to answer.
I have faith in you.
Faith in me. Let me see how to start this. So
If anyone can answer this, I'll talk about how you can answer this while you're thinking. And then
let me figure out how to say this. Okay, so how I address my goals is I don't really even set goals.
Mm-hmm.
Because for years I set goals. I set goals as a Tony Robbins coach. I worked there. I went to events. I walked on hot coals. I ate dog food. I slapped my face. And I got average results.
We'll get back to that.
Get back to the average results.
Did anyone else catch that? Dog food?
Dog food, yeah. If you Google Jason Drees and dog food, you'll find a YouTube video of me eating dog food. It's still up there.
Jamie, can you pull that
It's
up?
actually a really good story. And if I forget to mention it, we need to bring that one back.
It is a powerful story.
Let the poor man answer the question, Christian. Jesus.
Yes. And so I grinded, right? How do you create success? Work hard.
Yeah.
Right? Work hard. But at the same time, we all know that hard work doesn't guarantee success.
Yep. Hard work and luck, right?
Well, that's been like
I would say persistence.
But you can be persistent and work hard and not be successful.
True story.
Yeah.
In 2019, I hit a wall. I had this company that I started with a coaching company with a couple other people called Excel Business Coaching. For 6 months, me and another salesperson did not close a single coaching contract. And I'm like, what is going on? And the salesperson said, I'm done. And I said, I'm done. Let's take off the coaching hat, go get a sales job. The dream's over.
Yeah.
And then the next month, coaching contracts started flying in on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And my head exploded. And that was when I first started to understand that what creates success is alignment with success. Hard work does not create success. Hard work increases your chances of getting into alignment with success because it gives you more opportunities. But success, like we live in an attraction-based universe. Your bodies are made of atoms, so are mine, so is this desk.
Sure.
They're not solid. Life responds to you, right? Life responds to you based on alignment, right? So I figured out that ever since that day in 2019, I've been exploring alignment, how to create alignment, how to do it to myself, and how to coach that way. So when I'm setting goals right now, I'm not setting goals based on what do I want? I'm basically exploring goals based on what's possible. What's possible. And what's possible and what's impossible.
Okay.
At this point, I don't think anything's impossible, so I don't ask that question. So I'm really, what is possible? Wide open.
Yeah. One of your favorite questions to ask, though, to other people is, what do you feel like is impossible, though?
Yeah.
Right? Just so that kind of showcases.
Yeah, I ask that question with clients because it usually creates a intuitive-based target.
It does, yeah. It gives them that short 5, 10, 15 meter targets, right? This one's probably attainable. This one's probably attainable, but this one, maybe not so much.
Yeah, like there's the 3 goal setting questions is like the first one is, what do you want, right? So if you ask somebody, what do they want? Let's just say they made, $50,000 last year. They're going to make, okay, well, maybe I'll make 60 this year, right? The second question is, what is possible? I'm like, okay, well, a guy I work with made 80. Maybe I could do 80.
Sure.
Right? And then the third question is, what would be impossible would be a lot of fun. And then they'll go like 250.
Yeah.
I don't know how. And then they kind of light up because when you ask yourself a question of what I want, it's based on past reference.
Yes.
When you say, what is possible, it's usually based on external reference. And then when you say what would be impossible, be fun to do anyway, that's based on usually internal gut instinct. And those are the targets that when you start to chase those, your life will transform.
So you're trying to bring that out in them. So that's the goal.
Yes. And remove their resistance to it occurring. Because a lot of people, I coach people who are worth, one of my clients went from 200,000 to 150 million net worth in 18 months.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I don't help them create success. I remove the resistance to it occurring.
That's a really great question for because everybody has a different way of measuring success.
Mhm.
And in this world, a capitalist society, we love to measure success by your income. How do you manage to get these people's ears to listen to you about how life should be lived when they feel like they've broken the financial, bank? These guys are successful. They feel like they're on top of the world. Maybe not necessarily happy, but what makes them listen to you?
If they're talking to me, they're out of alignment.
Yeah.
And my gift is finding that. You show me anybody and I'll find some misalignment in them.
Mm-hmm.
So my gift is really helping people get into alignment with themselves and life and what they want. That's really, so when I used to do results-based coaching, what do you want? What are you going to do? Well, I want to grow my real estate investing business. Okay, what do you need to do? I need to get new leads. Well, where do you need to get new leads? I need a cold call.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you cold call? I don't like rejection. And I'd be like, what kind of man are you? Right? Man up, right? So that right? but that
results-based.
Results-based, right? Well, get it done.
Stop being a bitch.
Stop being a little pussy, right?
Well, why are you a bitch?
But what it actually is that resistance is misalignment.
Mhm.
So that approach forces misaligned action,
Mhm.
which gets you mediocre results, right?
Yeah.
So instead of coaching on action, what I coach now on is mental environment.
Mhm.
So aligning the mental, your perspectives and your expectations so that life flows.
Yeah.
So instead of grinding, it's like naturally inspired action and flow.
Mhm.
Okay.
And if people aren't taking action and they're sitting on the couch, they're in misalignment,
Mhm.
right? Procrastination is not a thing. That's misalignment,
Sure.
Yeah.
right? And what I've discovered how to do is that now most of my clients are usually in entrepreneurs, and because that's what's paying them. Business is only a few years old at this level, right? So that's what's paying the bills. But the work we do literally is just like freeing people from emotional problems, traumas, limitations, and stuff like that across the board.
Mhm.
And that's why it's interesting because California, I wasn't around any veterans or guns, or like I've literally never fired a gun. Like I've been in California, there's no guns in California, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then coming here, there's vets everywhere. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm starting to see this, and I saw this YouTube video of this like vet, like he got pulled over on
Oh yeah, I saw that.
where he was crying.
Yeah.
And he was on the
Got a hug from the police officer.
yeah.
rough.
And I was like, I can help him. I can help those guys do that. So that while I like helping entrepreneurs create success, I'm feeling this desire to do this work at a way that helps people more.
So before we kind of bust into that, I want to ask, like, what's a common misalignment that you're seeing from the average client on your end? Because this is an interesting subject in that we could talk about the differences between a veteran's perspective and a civilian's perspective. So what is the misalignment that you're seeing a commonality across the board?
It depends on where it's coming up.
Procrastination was a huge one, you said.
I think it's easier everybody has it somewhere.
Yeah.
So think of it the easiest way to think about it is like when you're setting a goal, you're moving from A to B.
Yeah.
Right. Where people get resistance in different parts of the process of going from A to B. And depending where they are in their phase of their career and their level of success will also indicate where they're at. Right.
Mhm.
So if you have somebody who's at A and they're going to point B and they're at the beginning, W-2 job, and they want to be an investor, or they want to make more money, they'll a lot of times have resistance to the commitment and the work. And so literally resistance to the process.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes you'll have people who are committed to the process, but they have resistance to the end result.
Mhm.
Like what? How do they have resistance to the end result? Well, they want to make more money, but they think rich people are greedy.
Yeah.
Right.
Or anxiety at the same time.
Or anxiety, right? Like, and a lot. So there's the identity of the end result.
Yeah.
And so you may have resistance to the identity of the end result. You may also have resistance to losing the identity of the starting point.
Mhm.
So me and my W-2 job, me and my buddies, we all sit around, we drink on the weekends, and we bitch about the bosses and everybody with money.
Yep.
So if I start making more money, what are my buddies going to think about me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we get resistance in different places. We also get resistance to the actual starting point.
Mhm.
Where people are like, I've got one client who was making a lot of money and has had a multi-$100 million exit that didn't fell apart. So so there was resistance because this person couldn't believe where they were.
Yeah.
Right. So you can be in resistance to point A, you can be in resistance to point B, but if you're not in alignment with the starting point and end point, you'll never get there. Google Maps doesn't work without two addresses.
Sure.
So it depends on where they are. I find that like when they're early on the lower income earning levels, it's usually around the identity of the end result or the process. When they get to higher levels of wealth and success, a lot of times it's more starting to resistance to doing it their way versus the socially conditioned way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you seeing a lot of people just being kind of stuck where they're at currently?
Well, yes, right. You know, the thing, the way to think about it is a lot of people are putting a lot of time in and they're focusing in the way that doesn't work. And they're trying to think their way.
Yeah.
So a simple way to think about it is like, think about this and I always use my hands for this graphic because this helps you understand how mindset works. So like imagine there's a little circle here that says action. Like so your hands take action. So if you want to achieve a target, your hands have to take action, right? What controls your hands? Your brain, right? Right. So we'll do a little diagram. Action, mindset, right? What controls your mind? You.
Sure.
Right. So you got action, mindset, and what I call frame.
Okay.
Which I believe is the vibrational frequency of you as a being.
Okay.
The way I found life actually works is that we think action creates our reality, but it doesn't. Reality creates your action. So the frequency of you determines which version of reality in life responds with. Do you get a craving for a taco or a hamburger? You had a hamburger every day for lunch, but all of a sudden you start to get into better alignment. You'll crave a taco one day and then you meet a new connection at the taco shop.
Okay.
Right.
Sure.
So what's usually happening when people aren't hitting the target or don't know what to do, like the action isn't working, they're in a mindset that's not in alignment. That's coming from the frame level. So what most people are doing is they're getting feedback from life that the action isn't working.
Okay.
They're getting negative emotional guidance, frustration, uncertainty, doubt. Those are indicators of misalignment. So instead of shifting from the misaligned frame to the aligned frame, they're stuck here just trying to solve their way out of it.
Sure.
But they're operating in a frequency of mindset where the solution doesn't exist.
I think that brings a good point too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but people have a tendency to focus on the wrong things. They're focusing on the little things, the everyday distractions, when they should be looking at, those. It was a great example that I saw. You've probably seen this, where the guy takes a jar and he fills it up with a big golf balls, right? And he says, "Is there any room left?" And they said, "No."
Yeah.
So he takes pebbles and throws it in. Have you seen that one?
Yeah.
And he said, everybody's working on the sand that fills in this stuff, the little things that just like how do you get over the little things?
Well, that's a point of view. So frame, we can call perspective, we can call point of view. But what's actually happening is the person is in reaction.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're in reaction, so like, because the way as human beings, we wake up every day, we look in the mirror, this is my body, this is my life, this is my relationship, this is my bank account, and you have a reaction to that. When you're in an emotional reaction, you can't shift frames. You can't shift. And so if you get in a fight with a friend or partner, and you do something stupid and you're like, I was wrong, and they were so wrong, I was right. You're not going to make a good decision when you're in reaction, right?
Yeah, either way.
So you need to process the reaction. It's emotion energy. So you need to process that. And then you can actually start to shift. But most people are in constant reaction.
Yeah.
So the way that you start to create success at a level you want is instead of waking up every day reacting and then taking action, you react, process your reaction, move into alignment, and then the starting point. It's a tiny shift, but it makes a massive difference because when you start in an aligned frame, you start thinking different thoughts.
Okay. So to physically enact that, are you saying to shift your frame of mind to be less reactive and more proactive in searching for solutions, or in just taking those first steps earlier and being more intentful with those steps?
Yeah. Well, number one, be aware of when you're in reaction, right? If you're if you're having a negative emotional experience to something, you need to get out of that emotional reaction. And getting into alignment is actually extremely, very, very simple.
Okay.
I think that is a really good point for a lot of veterans out there who do struggle with post-traumatic stress. Is they are reactional. They are very reactional towards the situation they're in, and that prompts an emotional response. So for an example through you is, what do you do when you're emotional Do you need to separate yourself from the room, take a minute, process that by yourself? What are tips and tricks from you, Jason, that helps you get through that?
So there's a lot of different things, right? The number one thing is breathing.
Yeah.
If any of you see me at my events or anything, you'll see me go.
If any of you, as if you didn't know that I attended your event.
You've seen me there, but if you
this
see me
guy
speaking,
I'm leaving, guys.
I was talking to Christian.
Yeah.
So
talking to the hundreds of millions of live viewers.
But it's you're processing energy. You're processing energy that you may know what it is, and sometimes you don't know what it is. So it's almost like you can breathe. You can run, sometimes physical exercise. You could drink a beer. You could have sex with your partner. Those are different ways our bodies process energy, right? But the number one way is space.
Yeah.
And everybody has a life path that brought them here.
Sure.
Which is the result of the frequency they've lived in this lifetime. Maybe it was their destiny or maybe it wasn't, but that was the frequency of their reality, right? And every one of us is on a path of growth, path in this life to create more growth and expansion to us.
Yeah.
Some of us have been through things that are easy and had silver spoons, and some of us have been through horrendous, terrible, evil things.
Yeah.
But that's their life.
Yep.
Right?
It's their path.
So it is possible to process through that, but sometimes it just takes more time to process. But so when working with people with a lot of things to process, giving them a better understanding, a better frame of processing will help them move through that.
Yeah.
Because when you're simply in reaction to the past and you don't know what to do with it, then you get stuck.
Yep.
So what I do is I help people.
You say people have a tendency to just say fuck it.
They just get fuck it, right? Because they can so they're in it trying to process it and they say fuck it and they check out.
Yep. And they never revisit that at all. They just stuff it down. I think that's a really good point, for our listeners out there is space, taking space. Because how often are you in a bad mood and you put on that bad mood song that drives that bad mood even deeper and darker and you're just like in a lull, right? It's like we need to take space. We need to separate ourselves, change the environments that we're in to work on processing that.
Yeah. It's if you sit in it long enough, you'll eventually get through it. But I didn't know how to do this before either.
Sure.
Right? So there have been times when I got stuck in it. So when you don't know how to get out of it, it can feel hopeless because you don't know how to get out of it. Like I only discovered like frame shifting like 2 years ago. So, but what I work with clients now is where this comes up with clients, most clients, and most of my clients aren't veterans, but every one of them, if you ask them about their past, they're going to shut down. Right. So I take clients through event processes where let's align our past.
Sure.
And literally, you just got to kind of sit in the feeling until it's gone.
Yeah.
And you may have to sit for 5 minutes or 5 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about this veteran because I think it's really interesting that you brought that up and it kind of frame shifted you a little bit onto a whole new audience of how you could help. Yeah. So this veteran, there's a video of this veteran that most of us have seen that is about to commit suicide in his car on the side of the highway. Calls a friend. Friend sends police over. And he breaks down in front of the police officer, gives him a hug. The police officer is very supportive, helps him through the situation. When you saw that video, it obviously tugged a heartstring for you.
Still does.
What do you think that went through your head where you're like, this is where I'd start with this. This is how I would help him. This is how I would help him take that space to process.
What went through my head or how would I?
I would like both. Yeah. I would like to hear both.
There's people listening right now who are in that exact
most of our audience,
if not really close to it. Yeah, there's quite a few people.
I mean, we have people that reach out on this show almost on a weekly or at least monthly basis that have said, some of these guests have saved my life, right?
Yeah.
So you could make impacts, and a lot of people are struggling with this. A majority of our audience has gone through something like that, and that's why they listen. So it'll be an interesting tool for them to put in their bag.
Yeah.
My initial thought my initial reaction, because I'm the type of person that responds to bad situations instantly. I go like into a different like resolution mode.
Yep.
My first response is I have work to do.
Mm-hmm.
And also honestly felt a little bad about chasing money so much.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's important work to do. I wish I could do more of that, but right now the business, I've got a bunch of people that have salaries and stuff like that too,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
So, but it was really like, I'm supposed to do something about that.
But I think what the greatest part is too is we've had tons of offline conversations, is that's not where your focus entirely is. It's not about financials. Yes, it is. You got to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
It's totally understandable. But I think the conversations that we've had over the last few months is how quickly can I start this foundation so that we can do that good?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Like the work is the same that I'm doing. It's helping people get into alignment from misalignment.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be around money. It could be around happiness. It could be around struggling to overcome your past.
Sure.
But it's all the same work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, and how I would approach that is, I don't know. I've been able to, the things I do at live events, I don't know how I do all those things I do, but it's almost like my gift is to literally hold this presence of a frequency or a frame so that allows people to match it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with that particular veteran there, if I was there, the number one thing would simply be connection.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
To connection, because that person is feeling isolated and alone.
Yeah.
Sure. Right. So, and once you get connection, then you get rapport, then you can start to shift the, in my work, I use the word frame, but we'll call it perspectives or points of view that this person's brain has created based on their assessment of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's putting them into the small box that's getting worse and worse. So I know how to shift those into a more powerful, resourceful, healing place.
Sure. So for people who can't interact with you directly, though, what recommendations would you make for them? What advice would you give to them to start enabling themselves to be able to do that, or start being able to be a resource for other people as well?
Yeah, I would say, well, I do a free call every week. They could join. It's called, if you go to MondayMindsetReset.com, I do a 20-minute call every Monday, so that's free.
Okay.
But I would say, start learning what excites you, like, or which direction is interesting you to kind of solve this.
Mm-hmm.
If it's my work, then buy my book and restart there. If it's like Joe Dispenza's work or somebody else's, like, but the first step is like, understand that this is not a terminal diagnosis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can change anything. Like, I don't know if you know who Joe Dispenza is, but Joe Dispenza is, he's a speaker and he does a lot. He's like a neuroscientist now, but he's like, was a chiropractor. He's a trained chiropractor. And he would run, I may butcher a story a bit, but he would compete in triathlons. Mm-hmm. And he got hit by a car on his bicycle.
Oh, shit.
And broke his back like in 3 places. And he went to the hospital and he said, they're like, you need a titanium rod and you may walk again. Mm-hmm. He said no. And he went home and meditated for 12 weeks and healed his spine with his mind. And it's been
that's like some Dr. Strange
scientifically proven, right?
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
The thing is, it's like
the mind is way more powerful than we give it credit for.
Like whether we like it or not, we're eternal. Like there's a part of you when you look in the mirror that never ages.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great point. It's not terminal. And I want to preface this because I have a difficult question for you.
Sure.
But happiness, I'm going to preface it with this, is that happiness is a chemical response, right? The way we're happy is not situational dependent. If I'm at a concert and I'm feeling happy, it's the same as eating that pizza when I've been starved for a week and a half, right? Yeah. So happiness is definitely a chemical response. Mm-hmm. Now, that means that when you said your frame shifting and power of mindset can cover a broad spectrum of categories, obviously, right? It is kind of a one-stop shop method for reframing the mind.
Yeah.
There is a lot of veterans out there that'll ask you the question of, since you have never served, why am I going to listen to you? What advice are you going to give me that's going to help me through that when I feel like you haven't experienced what I have? And that's a really big thing in the veteran community is I'm not going to listen to this therapist because these fuckers don't know where I've been, And I know that's not the case because you've gone through your trials, tribulations, and your adversities in your life.
Great question. And the answer I would give to that is the same reason I talk to astrologers every now and then. Because...
Lance?
Larry,
dang it.
Larry, my friend, the astrologer, is now that person or vets have been through something I clearly don't understand. And I can't even, some of this stuff can't even comprehend. Mm-hmm. But there is information that comes out of me and other people. So anybody that is feeling that not open to information, I would say to them, maybe you should look at the information that life is presenting you, regardless of source, and then determine if that is true to you or not. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes life talks through us through other people. And if we have a resistance up because we don't think we're putting a filter out there already that their voice isn't going to be any good because they don't understand us, well, that's a limited point of view for that person to operate from.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I actually had an experience with a psychic. Like when I first started to, I used to think when you're dead, you're dead. Mm-hmm. And in 2005, my family used to be really tight and we would ride dirt bikes and do all this fun stuff. In 2005, my 21-year-old cousin died in a drunk driving accident in Mexico. Man. And it like fractured the family. And then 2 months later, I saw this psychic in this place called Circle of Books in Menlo Park. And it was the first time. And prior to that, I thought when you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah.
And we have this, I'm talking to this woman. She was late 30s, Hispanic. And then she starts acting like a 21-year-old white kid from Orange County. And she started mimicking his mannerisms. He used to be like super, and I was like,
yeah,
maybe we're more than that, right? Mm-hmm. So the interesting thing is like, that was part of my journey that started my understanding that we're maybe more than these bodies, because the whole process that I use of coaching is actually, frame shifting is from a place of ownership of your reality and everything that you are. So, and it's funny, in one of my Amazon reviews, somebody's like, I read the book and as soon as he said a psychic, I just returned it. It was like, well, that's your loss. Like it's information coming from different sources.
And that's a big problem that we have just in society in general. Yeah. Is there is quite a disparity between extremes. Mm-hmm. Everybody's so extreme on everything. No, I'm not going to believe this. I cut it out. And you just shut yourself off to a whole nother world.
Yeah, you do it. You absolutely do. And I think that's interesting that you use a psychic as a reference there, because I know personally, even just about a year ago, I didn't believe in any of this stuff either, right? I didn't believe in an afterlife or anything beyond our physical reality. Mm-hmm. And since then, I've had experiences through my own search for meaning, multiple experiences now that have changed my perspective in my life and my willingness to be more open to those experiences, right? So like seeing a psychic, something I never would have done in the past. But just a few weeks ago, I had such an amazing, life-changing, life-altering experience that someone suggested, like, maybe you should talk to a psychic about this. And now I'm in the mindset and the perspective of, well, you know what? Why not? Like, what's the point?
And it opens your world up.
And that's what you use the word resistance. And that is going to be the number one thing that I know most of our listeners are going to have.
I agree with you
because
100%.
They are me and they are Dave, and you're coming from a different perspective. But I know I was incredibly resistant to change and to being truly open-minded. I've always considered myself an open-minded person. And I always thought that just meant socially, right? Yeah, I don't have an issue. Like if you want to pursue something that makes you happy, whatever that is, go for it, as long as it's not hurting other people. And I thought that was open-mindedness. And what open-mindedness really is when someone makes a suggestion, you're like, no, that's fucking stupid. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Don't say that. Just if you think that, recognize it and try to apply the opposite immediately.
Take a breath, try it out. It might help you.
See what happens. Because you might surprise yourself. You may surprise yourself and you may feel some relief from it. It may send your life in a totally different direction. You never know. And that's honestly what it comes down to, from my perspective, is being open-minded to the things that you're suggesting.
And breaking through that resistance, as he mentioned, is the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
In the veteran community.
Yeah, and I can understand that because the way the veterans have been treated and is my understanding, which isn't very vast, but I get it, but at a simple level, it's information coming out of somebody's mouth.
Yeah.
Whether they're a doctor, a veteran, or a psychic, it's a person talking to you.
Yeah.
Where is it coming from their brain, right? So I would just say, listen. And if you like it, listen more. If you don't like it, stop listening.
Sure.
Right? But the resistance is like the resistance is hurting you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you may not, and part of that creates self-validation emotionally. So and it is meeting their needs at some point, right? And I'm guessing like they may have tried to, if you have someone who's tried to find a solution and it's not working and other people are giving it them and they're doing that from a place of lack of connection or rapport, well, it's not going to work, right? But the ability to change and to grow past or create success or overcome the past is all going to be based on the beliefs of the person themselves.
Yeah.
Because whatever you believe is your reality.
Sure. Yeah.
True story.
So the number one thing, regardless of information from here or there or going through the PTSD or the trauma experience, like, do you believe that you can get past this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the big thing is they don't and they've given up in a sense. And it's easier to just stuff it down.
Yeah.
So why bring up something when I'm a tough individual that's going to make me feel not tough anymore? And it's interesting because, and it'll be interesting to see how the Flow Foundation really builds into the veteran community.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be the thing is like, how do we break through that resistance and help these guys out?
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting one.
It is. And I approach it the same way I do at events with everybody, right? It's, the part of the story about losing my cousin doesn't end there. Like 10 years later in 2016, my other cousin passed.
Mm-hmm.
He was, my cousin Daniel, he was 29.
Damn.
Had a 3-year-old daughter. Highly mechanical. Was helping a friend change the brakes on this full-size truck and the truck fell off the jack and crushed his chest.
Jesus.
And you're just like, he could take apart a truck and put it back together if he wanted to. How did that happen?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is those two cousins were actually, they were first cousins. Those two were inseparable their entire lives. And I'm just like, that wasn't an accident.
Mm-hmm.
That was a destiny, right? And I've also come to understand is that every one of us is on a path in this lifetime. And some of the things we like and some of these things we don't like. And the thing that really, the way you start to get out of being in a place you don't want is taking ownership of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it may be really hard to do, but you have to, because you can't change anything when you're in reaction. Because if you're in reaction or you're in a victim to your circumstance, you can't change it. You have to be in reality.
Avoidant behavior is still denial.
It is still denial. Like you cannot change anything if you're not in control.
Yes.
And what I do with a lot of people who've been through challenging things, it's like, well, what do you love most in your life right now? They're like, well, my son. Mm-hmm. When did you meet you've been married for a year? And like, well, if you wouldn't have been through that experience 10 years ago, would you have met your wife?
Yeah.
And they're like, well,
that's an interesting one.
It's like, well, is your son worth what you went through?
Yeah.
That process in life that you went through was your process to get that.
Interestingly enough, I had a conversation the other day about someone who was getting divorced and they have 3 children.
Yeah.
And, they self-talk is a big thing for me. Negative self-talk is something that you should just leave at the door and just leave that behind. And she was saying I was just a stupid 20-year-old, blah, blah, blah. I should have never trusted this guy. And I said, you have 3 beautiful children that came out of that. Like, would you go back and change meeting him for that?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because everything does have a ripple effect or a butterfly effect.
Yep.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the tough times define a story for someone else.
Yeah.
Right back to what we talk about on almost every single show.
Every single show. I got blown up.
It's 1 to 10, right?
Yeah, I got blown up. It's a terrible thing. It sucked, obviously, and it hurt real bad. For anyone who's wondering, because I get asked that question quite a bit.
Did it hurt?
Did it hurt?
Well,
nah, dude. Paper cut hurts worse nowadays.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. So like I blew up. I stepped on that bomb, but I still, nowadays, I got into a career field that I never thought I was going to be in, where we give back millions of dollars to veterans in need and first responders. And like, that's my story. I had to go through that trials and tribulations and accept that so that I could do a deeper impact today.
Yeah. And it's true. It's true. the totality of life experience, right?
Yes.
Is that what we call it? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Like it's using those negative experiences to shift your perspective and appreciate the positive ones that much more.
But those experiences is the path of life to turn you into who you're supposed to become.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Destiny. Interesting topic. And a lot of people will resist that.
Yeah.
They will.
You know?
Because, it's like I'll work with somebody, some new clients, and I'll get them excited. I'll get them open. I'll get them aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And then literally they have the craziest problems start to come up. This. And it's like, that's the path.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's the path. Because like right now, like this blob of consciousness of some sort is vibrating in a frequency of reality that has this experience. The version of you that has a different relationship or an income bracket or different emotional experience is a different version of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The obstacles in your path are there to turn you into that version.
Yeah.
Mm.
And interestingly enough, most of the time when you're going through adversity or your challenging situation, that is the time you feel most alive,
Yes.
but only in hindsight.
Mm.
Yes.
Only while you're doing it, it sucks. I hate this. This is terrible.
Yeah.
10 years go back and you go, that's when I felt it. That's when I was challenged. That's how I am like this today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go back and change those negative things. So look back and embrace them because that's what
Learn from them.
Yeah, it's what's brought you to the area that you're at now. It's what brought you to this moment, right?
Yeah. And I've done a lot of work to where like I would talk for a long time about like, I don't have self-judgment anymore.
Mm.
I've done so much work. I've just finally moved into a place of acceptance.
Mhm.
So, and I had thought I was done with my work. Okay. How's your past? Oh, it's fine. But I realized you can be in like resistance to the past.
Yeah.
You can be neutral to the past or you can love your past.
Mhm.
So I've been really exploring this idea lately that I'm the only person on the planet that gets to be Jason Paul Drees.
Sure.
And being Jason Paul Drees gets to have these experiences and these processes to get me here.
Mhm.
Can I love the negative parts as much as I can the positive parts simply because I love life?
Yes. Those negative parts teach you the most valid lessons. I mean, that's something that I have been working on this year as well, is understanding that those negative things, the most horrible things can ever happen. You know, we lost a military family member, lost one of their kids to cancer last year. We took her out to Disneyland before. And I was just, you ask yourself those questions, like, why is this happening? It's just so heartbreaking. But that story of this little girl will probably motivate someone to build a foundation that helps cure cancer. Like, who knows what that story is going to do? And maybe her life ended, but that lesson is to be learned across all spectrums.
Mm.
Sometimes souls are on this planet for a short time for a specific reason to teach everybody a lesson.
Yeah.
Like I still remember that.
And that's a beautiful outlook.
Mm.
That is beautiful.
Like I still remember when was it? Was this like 2015? When was it the Siberian refugees were drowning? Remember that? Was it, where was it? I forget. There was a humanitarian crisis and there was these refugees and they were escaping on boats and there was this dad carrying a 3-year-old son that had drowned, right? And like the whole world you could feel was impacted by that. And sometimes those things happen and those are gifts to us.
Yeah,
really,
in a skewed way.
Yeah.
In a very skewed way. Is like, that 3-year-old passing resonated across humanity.
Yeah.
It's a vital lift. 9/11, horrible act of terrorism, unified the country. Like there is things that comes out of the burned soil, the volcanic ash. So anyway, we could obviously talk for hours and hours to this guy. So I want to take the last 10 minutes to really talk about the event that you have coming up.
Yeah.
And the first program of Flow Foundation that is bringing veterans in free of charge to attend your seminar.
Yes.
Let's hear about it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So it's doing a 3-day event. It's called Step Into Greatness. And these events are funny because I always react to who's there. But basically the goal of this event is to create self-alignment, alignment with yourself. Because when you get it, so many people create success by getting into alignment with success, but they sacrifice alignment with themselves till later.
Sure.
So the point of this event is to really get people to understand what their full potential is, help them create the confidence and the awareness to step into that and help them integrate and remove anything that's preventing that. So that by the time they're leaving that event in 3 days, they're aligned with themselves, they love themselves, they're tapped into their power, and any of those major blocks. And one of the things we're going to go through is like your biggest fear. We're going to uncover your biggest fear and like turn it around.
Yeah.
So we're going to take the entire group through that journey.
Interestingly enough, I could truly attest to your seminar I went a couple of months ago to one. And anyone who watches the show, I'm big on self-growth and self-development. I read about a book a week, and trying to push myself to be better. So when I went into your seminar and I was like, yeah, what am I going to learn there? Full disclosure. But I did. And one of the greatest things that I heard at this event was just sometimes it's great to have that information, like you said. And you said something that we really apply to Terra Arma all the time now is going from me to we, is how do we take, an individualist mentality and bring that into the team to build trust and just watching you offload, like watching us offload to the team and see them take charge has just been a relief on me, a relief on him, and everybody else around us is feeling just so into it. So like it is a tried and true method. I do love these things. And what I really love about this military vets that come to this, most of them are veteran entrepreneurs, leaders of some sort, or transition out, getting into the business career field. But what I really like is that you're taking your successful group of individuals, you're bringing these veterans in, and they're going to be at the frequency now of these higher successful individuals. So that's going to be really interesting to see how they mesh together.
It is interesting, and one of my elite clients is actually she's a veteran herself. Her name's Karen. She's going to be helping mentor them too. So we're
excellent.
I'm really curious. So much of the work I do is based on where they are. That it's a lot of times it's really hard to even prepare because I don't even know what's there.
Yeah.
But we basically go through a journey and I just have a natural way of giving people a new point of view that like literally changes everything. It just destroys the old one. We're going to talk about financial mindset too quite a bit. And so basically the whole purpose of this event is just to remove everything that's holding you back. And when that happens, life just starts to flow. So I'm really excited and curious to see how that's going to fold out with this audience.
Same. Yeah. When is the event and where is the event?
It's next week, October 27, 28, 29. It's in Austin.
Austin, Texas.
Yep.
So for anybody who's interested in joining or attending, where can they find more information?
Yeah, so tickets are still available. And I don't know when this is going to air, but
I think it's
next week.
Probably next week.
Maybe.
We'll find out.
We'll find out.
It might air.
Patrick was supposed to look at me, but he didn't.
You can still access via live stream.
Okay.
So if live stream, and then we'll have a discount for vets too.
Excellent.
If they want to register for live stream. So it'll be October 27, 28, 29. You could log in from home and watch and participate.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. I mean, so we talked about the work you're going to do for them.
Yeah.
What about you? What do you get out of these programs?
Everything, all the coaching that I'm doing is basically, I've been through everything. My life, I wish it wasn't this way because my life is basically directly tied to my content. So doing this work is one of the most fulfilling things I've done in my entire life.
Sure.
These events are the pinnacle of what I do. It's the best. I love making the impact, and I love I feel like I'm operating in mastery. That is just never ending. There's literally the tools that I use just constantly change because it's always an evolution. Because I really think that life is an exploration of your constantly expanding potential. And how much can you step into it? Because what actually happens is the more you step into it, the more you grow. The more you grow, the more you get out of alignment. Because alignment creates growth. Growth creates misalignment. So the more you're open, the more you grow. So all my clients look at me and they're like, you must be in alignment all the time. Like, no, I'm out of alignment 80% of the time because I go, yes. It's terrifying. It's challenging. The most difficult, gut-wrenching thing I've ever done in my entire life, but it's the most satisfying, rewarding, fulfilling way to live. That's what I do.
And it all started with dog food.
I'll start with dog food.
Let's hear the story. I want to hear it. Everybody's been waiting, I'm sure. Let's hear the dog food story.
Dog food story. So 2013, I was in tech sales. My wife was running a preschool out of our house. Dash was born. He was 1. She was pregnant with Magnus. She closed her business. We moved to Rockland, California, which basically cut our expenses in half from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And then a week after we moved there, I got laid off from my tech job. And the baby was doing 3 weeks. And my startup company had taken care of any savings.
Oh.
So I had started, and I'm like, oh my God, I got invited to the Tony Robbins coach training. This is great. But at the same time, we have a baby due, no money, and it was just terrifying, And over the next year was probably one of the most challenging things I've done was become a coach. We were on food assistance from the state at one point. I've had Alexis come home and say, our card was declined.
Wow.
The woman behind us brought groceries in line. To this day, I always carry a lot of cash and I hand it to people who need it. And basically it was early 2014 and I was struggling. And I talked to another coach on the team and I said, and I had been at Tony Robbins since August and there was about 120 coaches on the team and I had just started. And he's like, what do you need? I'm like, I need money. He's like, what do you need this week? I'm like, I need $2,500. And he's like, okay, go find $2,500 this week in your own coaching business. Cause we always had our own coaching business on the side to the Robbins business. So go find $2,500 this week. Done. And he goes, okay, do that. And at the same time, after this call, post to the Tony Robbins coaching team's Facebook page that you're going to get $2,500 this week or you're going to eat a can of dog food. And I went like,
self-accountability.
And I was like, and I'm like, and he goes, whoa. He's like, can you do that? I'm like, and like words weren't coming out of my mouth. And he goes, okay, Jason, because his name was Gabriel Patrick. His name's Gabriel Patrick. He's an awesome coach. And he said, so Dash is 3, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, how are you going to feel in 10 years when Dash is hanging out with his buddies after school in 7th grade and his friends say, hey, Dash, why do you live with your grandma? And he goes, yeah, we live with our grandma because my dad wasn't willing to eat dog food to give us financial independence. It was like this gut punch. And I was like, boom, like, you dick. Like, yeah. So I'm like, in, done. I posted it to the Facebook page. And this is like, I had, and there was a lot of these games in that organization. And I was brand new with 120 coaches. I'm like, I'm going to do this week, $2,500 or dog food. And over the course of that week, my stomach was twisting in knots.
Yeah.
Like words weren't coming out of my mouth. And what actually happened is on Friday, I managed to close 3 contracts and I got $2,500. But the last client said, can I pay you Monday? And I'm like, yes, I'm not going to fuck that up by pushing it. So technically I failed the challenge, because I didn't have it in my bank account by midnight. So this Saturday morning, I'd go into my office with a can of dog food, no ketchup, no like liver generic.
First of all, why did you think of ketchup?
Well, I was like, I had asked him, can I put ketchup on it? Whatever, to make it less worse.
That makes it worse.
Make it worse.
Some sauce on here?
And he's like, no, generic liver flavor out of the can.
Oh, yeah.
And then generic brain. So it was a cat food size. So I go in there, and in that moment, I had this breakthrough and I realized that I wasn't eating that dog food as a punishment. I was eating it because I was doing something disgusting because I said so.
And what are you willing to do?
Because it was a choice.
Yeah.
And I started eating. And what I didn't realize that dog food has bones in it. You can't chew. I got about 3/4 through before it started to come up. And the interesting thing, after that was like Q1 2014. At the end of June, the first year out of 120 coaches on the team, I was the number 1 coach on the Tony Robbins team.
Hell yeah.
I've been there less than a year. Later that year, I was coaching other Tony Robbins coaches. Because what actually happened is by that exercise of eating the dog food, the part of me that thought it was okay to set a target and not follow through died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mind over matter, for sure. That's incredible. And we could certainly be talking to you for several more hours. If you want to hear more about Jason and his story, check him out on his website and Instagram and social at
JasonDreesCoaching.com.
Awesome. And Instagram?
Instagram's Jason Drees Coaching as well.
Oh, perfect.
And if you want to join my free weekly Monday Mindset Reset Call, you can just go to MondayMindsetResetCall.com. Join that Zoom call every Monday, 20 minutes from 10 to 10:20 Central.
I'm going to challenge you with something.
Yes.
Off the fly. Can we do a veteran call if we get some individuals reach out to us?
Absolutely.
I think that would be pretty powerful. You guys are interested in talking to this guy? We could get a Zoom set up and just talk about mindset, frequency, overcoming some adversity. I think we're good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
boom. That'd be great.
Excellent.
Jason Drees.
It's like Drees with it.
I almost said Deers because I was making fun of him in the beginning of the show. So it has been awesome having you, brother. Love you to death. Can't wait for your seminar next week. I'll be there. Christian will be there. A lot of our team will be there.
Hell yeah.
It's going to be great.
If you guys want to go, if you hear this before it actually happens, reach out, shoot us a DM on Instagram or send an email to the Medevac Podcast.com. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching today. See you later. Bye.
Thanks, all.